Good afternoon. My name is Mary Jiang, and I'm the president of Oakland Rotary Club. Founded in 1908, we are the third oldest club of some 36,000 clubs around 200 countries in the world. We are a diverse community of 270 professional community service leaders and business people who unite to serve our local and international community through the commitment to service above self. Thank you for joining us today at the California Ballroom and online. For over 114 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and their guests to our club meetings. Because COVID is still rampant, and contagious, please continue to wear your mask when you're not eating or drinking to protect yourself and to protect others. For those attending online, if you are a visiting Rotarian or a guest of a Rotarian, please put your name in the chat box, which is at the bottom of the center screen and we can recognize you in a few minutes. If you have comments or want to ask of a speaker, please put your comment in the chat box. We recommend you use to view today's meeting in speaker view, which is located upper right-hand corner of the screen. Now for our thought for the day, I'd like to welcome Rotarian Courtney Ruby.
Thank you, President Mary. It's good to be here. Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, about the concept of volunteering. It's very important. And we're going to hear more about our volunteer efforts last week later. Okay, please join me in reciting the Rotary vision statement. Today, we're going to have a small monitor. There's a cord missing that connects to the large monitor. So if everybody wants to move closer to the screen, because the speaker will be also on Zoom today. So feel welcome to move closer to this monitor. But join me in reciting the Rotary vision statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, so in our communities and in ourselves. Okay, so good. Guests are welcome to visit our club. Past district governor and past president Ed Jelen. Do we have any visiting Rotarian?
Yes, President Mary, indeed we do. We are very pleased to welcome with us today a retired social worker from the Rotary Club of Alameda. Please welcome Gigi Goldstein. And President Mary, may I add, as a retired bankruptcy judge, I have to pay my debts. Gigi wanted her card back, so let the record show. And Mary, I borrowed your pen, and I'm going to return your pen to you. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. So do we have any Rotarians bringing guests today? Oh, I'm sorry. Peter, do you have your hand raised?
This is Peter Sherris. We have Kathy Schmidt, publisher for Berkeley Hills Living, Piedmont Living, and Montclair Living Online.
Okay, thank you. Keith?
Keith Uriarte, and my guest today is Bercolia Manigo, who is a candidate for the Oakland Unified School District Board, District 4.
Hi, thanks, President Mary. Thank you, President Mary. My guest today, stand up here, in this beautiful pink, bright, cheerful thing is Sia Robles, who is a stress reduction therapist. Not that anyone here might need that.
Okay, any other guests? All right, thank you for joining us today. You're always welcome to join us at a future club meeting or club event. Today, I have the privilege of inducting our 5th new member of the Oakland Rotary Club. Will Michelle Ingrid and her sponsor, Christine Watson, please join me at the lectern. Christine, could you say 2 interesting facts about Michelle?
Can you hear me okay? Okay, I have a couple of interesting facts about my friend Michelle Ingram. She wants me to tell you that you probably recognize her a little bit because she's been to several Oakland Rotary meetings. At one of them, she kissed the Pope, and that was at our Halloween costume event. And then she came to our gala and she caught COVID like the rest of us. She's distinguished as a 3-year Navy veteran during the Vietnam crises, code for war. Her duty station was San Diego, California. She served in communications as the Morse code radio man. The most difficult Navy assignment Michelle earned was the 20 years she served as a submarine naval officer spouse, so that spouses would have an appreciation for life under the sea. They took everyone out on a submarine cruise trip with the goal of taking the submarine cruiser to the bottom of the sea. She said there she experienced what it was like to be underwater several hundred feet, maybe even 100 fathoms. It was really scary stuff. Now back on land, she plays golf weekly. Her favorite game is best ball or scramble or synchronized shots. And you have to ask her about that at the break. Michelle is a faithful volunteer for many organizations. FAS, which is Friends of Alameda Animal Services, the Oakland Airport Noise Abatement, and fundraising for the Alameda Welfare Council. And please note that in her FAS role, she is also a rescue supporter for dogs, and she is a dedicated pug foster mom. And I have heard that she's considered a failed foster mom because she falls in love with them and she formally adopts them and then she keeps them forever. So mission accomplished for sure. And I want to welcome her to the Oakland Rotary.
Okay. Michelle, welcome to the Oakland Rotary Club. You are joining 270 Rotarians in our club and over 1.4 million Rotarians around the world. Michelle, here is your red badge, which signifies your status as a new member. That way people will know you're new to come up and greet you and say hello to you. And a year from now, when you do all the commitments to get a blue badge, then you become a permanent member and you can greet other people with red badges. You will also receive the 4-way test, which guide Rotarians in their daily lives as follows. 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, would it be build goodwill and better friendship? And 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? You will receive in this goodie bag our Rotary Made Easy handbook, which provide useful information about our club, and a roster with just 270 newest best friends. And then your Rotary pin is behind the badge, so you can wear it proudly. With this pin, you know you can travel around the world and join any Rotary Club meeting, and you'll be welcome. Finally, you also receive our centennial book written by our own very own Rotarian Linda Hamilton, covering 100 years of Rotary history. Your commitment as a new member is threefold. One, attend meetings in person or online, participate in club services, and contribute to the Rotary Foundation and our Oakland Rotary Endowment. It is my pleasure and privilege to induct you as the newest member of the Oakland Rotary Club. Let's give Michelle another warm welcome. Okay. Today, I have a special family treat. We have a family package for self-introduction today. We have Ma Pervere, then her husband, Sam Miller, and then Ma's brother, Peter Pervere. So let's bring Ma first to give her 3-minute self-introduction, and Sam will introduce his wife.
Hi, my name is Sam Miller. I'm married to Maud Pervere. We've been together 47 years, so I know a little bit about her. Although, yeah, every day she's also a mystery still. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She was born and raised in the Bay Area. She went to school in the Bay Area through college and Berkeley Law School. She's been deeply involved in the Oakland community her whole career. She started her career as a lawyer, as a public defender, representing indigent criminal defendants here in Oakland. She was a public defender for 7 years and became a great trial lawyer. When our first son was born, she transitioned from practice to teaching. And she's taught at Hastings and Bolt and Stanford. She started teaching trial practice, trial skills, but then was an early adopter of the new idea that lawyers should be good mediators. So she taught dispute resolution and mediation and negotiation, developed whole curricula that she taught not only to law students, but also to public school teachers and even elementary school kids on how to talk to each other and resolve problems. She's been involved in Oakland in education in many ways throughout her career. She was a supporter and board member of a great preschool program in West Oakland called St. Vincent's Day Home. She was a volunteer and teaching assistant in the elementary school classes in the Aspire Charter School for years. And she's been a mentor for college scholarship recipients through the East Bay College Fund, which has now become the Oakland Promise. She's the founder of a great documentary film series called the Appreciating Diversity film series, which shows 6 or 7 films, documentaries on broadly defined issues of social justice and diversity, both in Piedmont and in Oakland. And she's an accomplished photographer. She's part of a group of really talented photographers that post on a website. You can see really interesting fine art photography. It's called F8 Don't Wait. She's a gardener, she's a cook, and now a great grandma. So with that. Here's Mom.
Okay. Thank you, Sam, for that lovely introduction, self-introduction of your wife. Ma, At this point, I would like to exchange a red badge for a blue badge. So give it up. There you go. And now we're gonna have Maud do introduction of Sam.
Sam Miller is one of those rare people who loves being a lawyer. His affection brought him not only our marriage, but our two children's marriages, because both of them married their law school sweethearts. You won't believe this, but he and I used to sit on opposing boulders in the Sierra when we went hiking and practice closing arguments, shouting out to each other, louder, enunciate. He didn't start out as a lawyer. Ask him about the 2 years that he spent doing community development work in Peru. But curiosity and adventure pulled him west, and he came to Bolt, and then became a lawyer in a big firm in San Francisco, where, unlike many big lawyers in big firms, he handled a lot of really interesting cases. Among them, one challenging the use of IQ tests to place Black children in schools for mentally disabled. And he spent a year in the Justice Department in Washington, DC, leading the first major antitrust case against Microsoft. He claims he's retired. But what that means is that he teaches a law school class every year. He coaches an El Cerrito High School mock trial team. He writes op-eds and short articles on antitrust reform. He mediates, he arbitrates, he mentors college kids through what was originally the East Bay College Fund, then Oakland Promise, and now the Oakland Rotary program. I said he loves being a lawyer, and he does, but we have found our highest and best use as grandparents. And he wanted our grandchildren to call him his self-definition, Grumps. However, they call him Grumpsy, which is perfect.
Okay, now Sam, can we take your red badge in exchange for your blue badge? And Maud, you can keep your blue badge. And now Maud will introduce her brother, Peter.
Well, this is a little intimidating, I must say, following two overachievers. And I am a year older than Maud, but I've always been known as her younger brother. I'm Peter Pervere. I'm a lifelong resident of the Bay Area, as Maud was, or is, and have been in the East Bay for 45 years. I'm currently retired from a career in accounting and finance, working with Ernst & Young and several technology companies, where I served on the boards of several technology companies as well. I currently serve on the fund board of American Century Investments and of the Oakland Museum of California, and have served on the board of the Berkeley Repertory Theater as well. I live in Piedmont with my wife, Georgia Castle, and our two dogs. And we, like Maud and Sam, have 2 children and 3 grandchildren who live very close by to us, and are we lucky for that. I was introduced to Rotary by Ken Richardson. Thank you very much, Ken. I was looking forward to an organization committed to some social good. To date, I have assisted Maud and John Holmgren with the Kinder Prep group in delivering books to elementary schools. And I look forward in the future to possibly playing some golf and doing some hiking outings with the club as they organize them. And it's good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, thank you for all this interesting introduction. So now you also get to exchange a red badge for a blue badge. Thank you. So wasn't it all these self-introduction, wonderful. Let's give them all a warm applause. Yeah, I believe some people find these introductions so exciting and fascinating to find out more about each other. So I plan to continue doing that. Is that okay? Okay, so Tom, would you like to tell us more about what's happening this coming Sunday?
All right, thank you, President Mary. So this Sunday, as many of you know, is the A's game. And so this year it's been real tough to sell tickets to these games. So I appreciate all the support. I know I see a lot of you are already signed up and I really appreciate the support. The A's, as you know, raised their ticket prices and sold the best players. So it hasn't been easy, but I promise I'll do my part with the good tailgate for you. And we have a Spanish paella. We're gonna have a 3-foot Spanish paella dish going. Where my wife's gonna be making another Spanish paella. My brother's visiting from Spain, so he's gonna do the big paella and also make some Spanish tortilla. But we're also gonna do a taco bar. It'll be a lot of fun. And one Rotarian donated some tickets to youth, and so we've filled about half of those slots. And so if there are any youth that you know that are involved with Rotary, please invite them to the game. It'd be a great experience. We have awesome seats. And then one other thing I wanted to share is Ahmad Anderson is going to be in the Hall of Fame. He played at football at UC Berkeley. And so he's going to be entered into the Hall of Fame this fall. And so they have a Hall of Fame game on Sunday, October 22nd. And so that's going to be our next sport outing. So we would like to do a tailgate at UC Berkeley and really celebrate Ahmad and his accomplishment as part of the early 80s Cal football team. And he was on the team that did the play against Stanford. One other thing is with Peter Pervere, a little bird tells me he was the very first donor to Oakland Lacrosse Club, which I'm a board member of. So that's quite an accomplishment as they're celebrating their 10-year and they now have a 7-figure budget. So thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Okay, can we have Nancy Williams to talk about upcoming business development mixer?
Thank you, President Mary. That's right. I'm here representing the Business Development Committee, and we are hosting Hot Summer Nights Mixer next week. We're really excited about that. It's going to be at Alita Scola's house from 5:30 to 7:30. So come rub shoulders with your fellow Rotarians, friends, and guests. We've also invited all of the Oakland various chambers, so it's going to be a really great event. It's going to be catered by Local Foods, which many of you are familiar with and fellow Rotarian. The wine will be served by Brooklyn West Winery, again, another Rotarian, and a musical ensemble by the one and only Rotarians, Jason Weiselman and Linda Hamilton. So you have to at least come for that. And if that's not good enough, we are serving bourbon root beer floats. So doesn't get any better, right? So come have a great time, meet new people, see Alita's beautiful home and the view from there. We are asking everyone to please register yourself and your guests as soon as possible so we can get the head count. And you can do so by going to the Rotary calendar. And this event is going to be very well attended, I'm sure, just to see Jason and Linda. But it is limited parking, so we are asking people to carpool as well as use rideshare services. Can't wait to see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, please sign up. Okay, Keith and Rochelle, could you give us an update on how the St. Vincent de Paul Community Service event went last Saturday?
Sure, Mary. Thank you. Go ahead, Keith.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. So last Saturday, we had a great volunteering event, and mentioning in our Courtney mentioned about the privilege of volunteering. And we had over 20 Rotarians, guests, and an interact who helped prepare and hand out, distribute over 700 meals on Saturday. And yes. And we also had some fun in that event. Now, there is a bit of a techno, I don't know if is it showing? Okay, so what you will see, or those online will see, and those of you who are close enough, will see some PowerPoint presentation about the event. And I want to thank Daniel Chang, who organized the event, who took most of the pictures that are being shown, which you could also see on Facebook and later on. And also Isaac Reed, who put together the PowerPoint presentation. So with some more detail about what happened on Saturday, I want to introduce one of our newest members of 2 weeks, Rochelle Capralis, who is going to let you know what happened on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Keith's my sponsor. All right, so on August 20th, I show up at the door and Danny's there waiting. Thank you. Danny's there waiting and I said, gee, you look kind of like me. Am I in the right spot? And he said, yes. So that was a good beginning. From there, I met 20 other Rotarians and it was quite a fun time. We were there from 8:30 to 1:30. And at St. Vincent de Paul, the mission is to serve the poor. The focus is person-to-person services to individuals in need. So basically our community donates big chunks of food. Think of us getting 50 watermelons and you now want to cut these up and give them to people. Well, that was my job. I got to cut fruit up. I cut fruit up with Cinder, Jay Shree, Jesse's significant other. Other people chopped, cooked, and bagged. I was next to Mary bagging product and running it out the door. And again, we did this, we prepared over 700 meals. And yeah, it was really fun. We met some really cool people. The fun thing about St. Vincent de Paul is if you ever want to go to volunteer, you can show up at that door at 8:30 to 1:30 and they will take you in as a volunteer, which is kind of nice. And I will do 2 more notes. I did meet Ed, the undertaker. And working with him, he said, Rochelle, live every day as if it's your last day. And that too, being there was really important. In the end, Mary presented a check for $7,329. So thank you. And in summary, there's a need here in Oakland. We got to help. And the motto, do what you can do. This is the beginning. And we'd like to, everyone who did volunteer, would you please stand up, raise your hand and be acknowledged. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll need to thank everybody who volunteered and Isaac doing this lovely PowerPoint presentation. Incredible pictures, a collage. And I was cutting meats. They trusted me with this giant knife. So, but anyway, all right. Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome CJ Hirschfield, who will introduce today's speaker on Zoom.
Thank you, President Mary. So today's speaker is director and camera woman CB Smith-Dahl. She's the co-founder / director of Together Pictures, which specializes in creating projects for diverse audiences and importantly, with diverse crews. She's directed hundreds of fiction and nonfiction social media videos for clients throughout California. And director of photography, she's worked on numerous features, including one that I saw recently that is excellent, called Clarissa's Battle, which features an Oakland early childhood education activist. CB says that she's worked every motion picture production job imaginable in Atlanta and in LA before moving back to the Bay. She's a member of the Brown Girls Doc Mafia, Women of Cinematic Arts, and the Collective of Documentary Women Cinematographers. Since 1996, she's mentored hundreds of diverse young people while teaching filmmaking skills. But I'm pretty sure she'd list one production at the very top of the list, her 20-year-old twin daughters, whose names are clever anagrams, Micah and Cami. Cami is following in mom's footsteps as she studies cinematography at CB's alma mater USC, while Micah's culinary studies have resulted in a position at Oakland's hottest new restaurant, Horn Barbecue. Please welcome my friend CB Smith-Dahl.
Thank you. Thank you so much, CJ. Hopefully you all can hear me. I'm actually on a shoot that came up rather suddenly in Mendocino, a wonderful event looking at how we might create a decentralized, more equitable, more democratic internet. So it's awesome to be with you guys here today from the Redwoods. I am so thankful to get this opportunity to share with you guys my unique perspective and point of view. I named this presentation "Listening by Seeing" because my lifelong journey has been a journey in that, in learning to see maybe what is hidden. If we can go to the first slide, I was born in 1971. Second slide. I was born in 1971 at a time when interracial marriage was fairly uncommon. This is a picture of my mother, my father, and me when I was about two and a half in Amherst, Massachusetts, where my parents were attending school. And one of the things that I think we forget is that even though there was a fight in the 50s and 60s to integrate schools, it was really my generation, Generation X, that actually went to integrated schools nationwide. And what my experience was, just simply that, as a mixed race child, my mother's African American and Native American, and my dad is white, is that I didn't really fit in anywhere because it was still fairly uncommon for people to be this and that. And then on top of that, I did this exercise recently that I found really interesting, where I listed all the schools I went to from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I'm sorry, the slide got a little jumbled, but I discovered in making that list that I went to 11 schools in 12 years, over 4 different states and 3 different countries, and also even went to 2 schools on the Navajo reservation. We lived in a place called Fort Defiance. Navajo also, of course, refer to themselves as Diné. And so not only was I this kid who sort of didn't fit in with my own groups, but I was constantly in environments where I was with a different group of folks. And I really became somebody who just kind of sat and watched a lot, who really tried to learn as best I could, sort of who were the friendly forces and who were the ones to watch out for. What were the spaces in which I was safe? What were the spaces in which I would be sort of mocked and made fun of? Let me try and get rid of some of the sun here, just a little bit as it creeps in. What it created in me was this reality where no matter what environment I went into, I was noticing the people who were under-acknowledged, underappreciated, less visible. And actually, one thing that I didn't mention on this slide that occurs to me in this moment, when I was in, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd grade, my mother had me in an after-school program at an elementary school that had both, typical and atypical kids, and specifically kids who had Down syndrome. So I was also exposed very early to disability as something that was just normal, that was just a different ability, and played with kids with Down syndrome at my recess and felt very comfortable with them. And so by the time I got to, we can go to the next slide, by the time I got to high school, I was really starting to use cameras as a way to engage with people safely. So a lot of times, and I don't speak for all camera people, but I speak for many of us, the camera becomes both a shield and a bridge. because obviously if I'm behind the camera and you're in front of the camera, I am less visible, right? You are more visible. And so it became sort of a safe space for me to look and watch and listen to people as they spoke. My original training was a mix of fiction and nonfiction. And so my original training, I'm going to turn off my camera just because that sounds so obnoxious, but my original training was a mix of fiction and nonfiction. And, you know, of course, in nonfiction and journalism and documentary, the standard training is that you are there to present the truth as it is, and you should really try and avoid your own point of view. But what I discovered the more I worked with the camera, and we can go to the next slide, is that your frame matters, that I would film something in a different way than somebody else would film something. I would focus on the camera on things that I noticed were interesting, were worth sharing. I know we've all had that experience of going to a new place and taking pictures. And one of the things that you may or may not have noticed is you're taking those pictures because you want to share them with someone often. You're taking those pictures because you're like, oh, I've got to show my kids this thing that I saw, or, oh, you know, my friend will be so interested in this architecture, or the way that people eat or dress or talk, or are just different from how they are in my community. And so over a period of really decades, I started to understand that the way I filmed things was different than how other people would film things. I did not understand that at first. At first, I really thought that I was presenting things in a neutral way, and that neutral way was the most valuable way. But because I had had all these varied experiences, because I was comfortable in spaces where other camera people who didn't have so much exposure, where those camera people were not comfortable, or where they filmed sort of the most obvious, or they filmed from the most mainstream point of view, I started to discover that my frame made a difference. And I think, you know, now at this point in my career, it's become clear to me that everybody's frame does. I'll say briefly, you know, one of the things that's interesting in white community, in one of my heritages, is that it's not uncommon for white Americans to say, well, I don't really have a culture. My culture is normal. My culture is just nothing, right? Because we're so used to using mainstream white culture as the normative culture. And in fact, folks who have traveled will start to discover, like, oh, you know, I grew up with Wonder White bread and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they don't even sell that in this place, right? And so you start to, as you go on in life, realize that the way that you did things as a child, the way that your culture frames things, is not quote unquote normal. It's just yours. And there is no normal. Everybody's culture has value and has a different way of doing things. We can go to the next slide. And so as I came to understand that my perspective was unique, that I wasn't neutral, that I wasn't just filming things as they were, I was actually filming them from a point of view. I started to understand more and more that the way I pointed my camera, the decisions I made about what was in frame or out of frame, how I used my camera could actually impact how the audiences see the photograph, the video, what have you. I really love this still photographer named Dawood Bey, and he wrote a book all about sort of his approach to photography. And this is one of the powerful things he said in there, is that he intends all of his work to be a catalyst for conversation and to, in some small way, transform the viewer. And I think when you film or videotape with intention, that will inherently happen. We can go to the next slide. So CJ, with whom I share a two initial name that begins with C, mentioned this film this feature that I worked with the director Tamara Perkins, and we filmed over 6 years here in Oakland, about this amazing activist named Clarissa Duthard, who runs a nonprofit called Parent Voices. And at the beginning of the documentary, one of the things that was very common in women making camera images of themselves was, and here I'll put my camera on so I can show you what I'm talking about. One of the things, if the moderator wants to put my camera on, one of the things that was really common was people would sort of take their cell phones and they'd put them up high and like take their picture from up high. And women, you know, we are folks who are constantly thinking about, or at least are acculturated to think about, how do we look, how do we present, how are we being seen? And especially women past, I don't know, some young age, start to get really concerned about, you know, like, how does my neck look? And so this is where this trend of like raising the camera up came from. Well, because I am a cinematographer, because I am a camera person, I understand that that camera has a point of view. And if that camera is looking down on a person, then that camera is saying, this person is smaller, this person is less than. And so as Tamara and I were talking about how we wanted to capture the incredible activist that is Clarissa Duthard, I said, you know, I want the camera to always be looking up at her. I want her to be presented as someone with gravitas, with authority, with wisdom, you know. And I think about films like, the name just went out of my head, but, you know, classic black and white films, including this one by Orson Welles, where, you know, every man in a position of power, every white man is filmed from below. And so that was the commitment that we made. And that was how we captured Clarissa. The camera is pretty much always either below her or slightly below her, just to elevate her and to say, this person is a hero. This person is someone worth looking up to. And I think it worked really well. I could have never had that perspective if I hadn't have watched my mother, who's African-American, right, often be, I call it being invisible, often being invisible, right? Being in the mall, looking at shoes and people, you know, not even talking to her. It's something that happens to African-American women often. And I was really, really honored to work in this project that centered a Black woman's story, a Black woman from Oakland, centered her perspective and really made her, made the image try to present the best and most powerful of her. We can go to the next slide. So Together Pictures actually had a predecessor. It had a previous name, which was, hold on. Okay, which was Community Bridge Video. Whoops, how do I not have this slide? Oh, I see. So this slide should have our mission statement on it, but something happened. It got lost in translation. And so the previous company was called Community Bridge Video. People always assumed we were a nonprofit. We can stay on that slide there with the logo, it's fine. And I really believe that people of color should be being paid, women should be, you know, all underrepresented groups should be paid the same price for the same work. And so we made the decision in 2019 to set up a structure that would allow for some profit participation of the folks that work with us. And also to just present an image that was a little more corporate and a little less sort of community. And so we came up with this name, Together Pictures. really based on this idea of what if we built a table where everyone was welcome at the table instead of trying to get people at the table. So our mission is that we bring customers and creatives together to build smart, unique, and inclusive motion pictures, videos, and photos. We have always consciously thought for over 15 years about how do we build a diversity pipeline. I'm very proud to say that among the folks I've mentored and the folks who have worked for Together Pictures in all its iterations, we have helped people of color and women to get into unions, to increase their pay rate, and to also create really incredible, beautiful work. So I'm really proud of that. We can go to the next slide. And these are just some of our behind the scenes photos from projects we've done. On the right, you see Edgar Ayala, who is operating the boom, operating sound for a video we did for La Clínica de la Raza, literally the day before the shutdown, presenting information about COVID to Mayan Mom populations. And so that video was actually a trilingual production because we did the video in Spanish and Mom, but of course there was some English on set and figuring out how to translate things and what order to present them and so on. The lower left there is our crew at work creating a tutorial series for Red Bay Coffee, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. And then the video up top, you guys may recognize Peralta Hacienda. We actually did a fictional piece, provided a crew, and on that one, I actually served as director, based on the life of Black Mary, working with a theater company from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who came out to Oakland to use some of these, late 1800 locations to create this historical piece about the first postal carrier who was African American. We can go to the next slide. So, just in terms of bringing it all together and how my perspective has shifted, I'm really proud of this tutorial series that we did for Red Bay Coffee that really just takes you through different methods of making coffee. But we filmed with baristas, with actual quote unquote real people that work with Red Bay. And what was so fascinating to me was here's this diverse group of young folks, and they came into the video thinking, oh, I should present in this really formalized way. I should look a certain way or talk a certain way. And it made them incredibly tense. And I said to every single one of them, here are some things about you that I find amazing. So the young person in the middle, as we were getting ready to go, was sort of playing some music and dancing to it. And so we used that into the tutorial where they go ahead and have a little dance break as they're waiting for a timer while they're making their coffee. It was just really an awesome experience to be able to highlight the diversity of Oakland, a diversity and expertise and perspective and point of view, and really honor what people bring with them when they show up in front of the camera. I wanted to give you guys a couple of take homes, just sort of lessons that I've learned that I think can be applied to life in general, but also as you guys make projects with your cell phones, I know everybody in the Rotary's on TikTok, right? Making their own videos. Or even if you're, filming something just with family or as you're out and about. So the first thing is always, look beyond first appearances, take time. When I used to teach video production, I would tell my students, look with your eyes first and then your camera. I think it's important in whatever room you're in to think about who's invisible. And that might be somebody who is making themselves smaller, as I once did, or that might be somebody who is simply not being acknowledged in that room. Why aren't they speaking? And is it a safe space for them? Cameras have a horrible history with Black and Brown communities as being used as tools of surveillance. So what can be done to sort of mitigate that and to make sure that people feel comfortable? And if they're not speaking, if they don't feel comfortable, ask them why not and see what you can do to help. Take some time yourself to be quiet to listen with your eyes, to just look and see who's here, who's not here, what's in this room, what is not in this room, what in this space is maybe presenting to me first, second, third, fourth, right? Think really consciously about who and what you want to frame for sharing, and think about the why, right? I think it's okay sometimes to go into an environment and say, oh, you know, this culture, they eat octopus, and so I want to take a picture of the octopus because it kind of freaks me out. But also think about the fact that the way you see that octopus on the plate might be different from the people who gave it to you. And so how you frame the food is a reflection of whose perspective on that food you're valuing. You know, as I've mentioned before, I really do believe it matters who's behind the camera. I did a video series for the WIC program, and you know, when we would walk in to film women breastfeeding, it was a two-person crew, a Latino woman and myself. And when we would walk into somebody's house to film a breastfeeding tutorial, you could see the women, just their shoulders relax and them calm down, like, oh, okay, it's not, you know, a bunch of guys who are going to be filming me as I do this very intimate, very loving thing with my child, that I'm worried might be sexualized if it's filmed in the wrong way. I also believe, and I think this is, you know, something that has really become a part of American culture in the most beautiful way, that more varied conversations, more perspectives, more stories are important. We learn from each other, and no one person has all the answers. And so hearing all those stories is great. And celebrate the differences. Diversity is a strength. Not only in terms of how our brains are wired, we like new things, but also in terms of gaining perspective, really working those muscles of sort of brain candy and learning and being changed by that diversity. And then lastly, you know, I think when people feel seen, they feel love. The simple act of saying to somebody, hey, can I take your picture, is really an act of valuation, of saying, I see you and I think who you are and how you are is powerful and is worth sharing. So continue your process of seeing and hearing through seeing. I'll say lastly, next slide, we're starting on a new project, which we'll be making a documentary, a feature-length documentary about the Autumn Lights Festival. Please stay tuned to our website for updates about that. Obviously, the festival this year is coming up very quickly in October, but feel free to reach out if you want to support the documentary in any way. That's togetherpictures.com/autumnlightsdoc. And then here you have my contact information. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to be here today with you. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Smith-Dahl. I'm sorry we don't have any time for Q&A today, but maybe someone could put some question on the chat box and we can send it to you and maybe you give us some answers. I'd like to thank you for that fascinating presentation. Education is my main area of focus for this year. So the Rotary Club of Oakland is proud to partner with the Oakland Promise to offer 8 $10,000 scholarship annually plus mentorship. We are proud to support the first in the family to attend college. In recognition of your presentation today, Oakland Rotary will make a donation in your name to the Oakland Promise to support its kindergarten to college program for every child in the city. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. In July last month, we introduced our new meeting alert system using this brand new Rotary gong. This month, we're introducing another Rotary Club innovation. Here with the information is past President Michael Bruck.
Well, thank you, President Mary. Every week as we gather here in the California Ballroom and online, we see and hear a familiar object, not President Mary, the Rotary bell. Now, as you all know, the Rotary bell is used to signal the start and end of our meetings, but does anyone know why the Rotary clubs use a bell at weekly meetings? Well, I'm going to tell you. Way back in 1922, the Rotary Club of New York entered into an attendance contest with the Rotary Club of London, and the club with the best attendance would receive a gift from the losing club. The Rotary Club of New York was declared the winner and received from the Rotary Club of Oakland a bell. And this was no ordinary bell. It was a bell from a British naval ship and was mounted on a piece of wood from Admiral Nelson's flagship that he used at the Battle of Trafalgar. Now, who knew? Since then, Rotary clubs have used a bell to guide members through their weekly meetings. And here at Oakland Rotary, of course, we not only use it to signal the start and end of our meetings, but to show our love and support and enthusiasm for each other and the special moments that happen in our lives and in our community. As Mary tells us every week, a bell ringer is a generous, tax-deductible $100 contribution to the Oakland Rotary Endowment. And since our bell ringers support our service projects, Mary doesn't want to overlook any bell ringer. So those secret envelopes on your table that say do not open, you can open them now. So in order to help President Mary locate each and every bell ringer, even those way in the back of the ballroom or way in back of the Zoom audience, we are introducing our bell ringer beacon sign. Yes, indeed. If you'd like to ring the bell, just pick up the bell ringer beacon on your table and hold it up until Mary calls on you. Anne Marie is demonstrating. And for those of you online, we're going to send you a virtual bell ringer beacon for you to print out and wave, or of course, you can still put your bell ringer in the chat. So who wants to be the first to ring the bell using the bell ringer beacon? Looks like Anne Marie is waving.
Yes, Anne Marie.
Thank you, President Mary and past President Michael Bruck. I want to ring the bell because, and I'm not going to give away all of the details, but sometime in mid-September, the city of Oakland is going to announce that one of the programs that I have submitted is going to be supported and funded. So you'll be hearing more about this.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for being the first to use the bell ringer beacon. All right. Peter, do we have any online?
Yes, President Mary. Anna Marie Jones, would you stand up, please? Come on. There is a bell ringer online in your honor from Ruth Stroop.
Peter rang the bell in honor of Anna Marie. And our newest Rotarian, Michelle.
I'd like to do a bell ringer just because I'm happy to be here, and this is something I have to do to get my red badge.
Yeah, Michelle. Joycey. Okay, Georgia Richardson, Joycey Mack. Jason.
Georgia. For Georgia.
For Georgia, Jason Weisenwitz for Georgia. Christine?
I want to do a bell ringer to welcome my friend Michelle Ingram. Welcome.
Christine Watson. Okay, Courtney?
Hi, Mary. I want to do a bell ringer because I am one of 3 nominees being considered to be the next state auditor of California.
Courtney Ruby. Okay. Go.
This evening, Cal has a cocktail party for season ticket holders, and they're introducing the new caterer. So the food will be different at the Cal events now. And lastly, we're going to celebrate Joe Starkey, who's retiring as the Cal announcer. And if you remember him from the he was famous for the Cal Stanford game. if you remember that, like 15 years ago. Anyway, that's it.
Okay. Could you give me your name again? Bill Purcell? I'm sorry, I need to catch his name. Bill Purcell, thank you. And I think I saw Seth Butler.
Our next state auditor.
Courtney Ruby. Seth? Okay.
I'd like to ring the bell for Anna Marie and for Michelle, who drove me around in a golf cart, even though she couldn't play the game.
So you're ringing, okay, Lita Scola from Anne Marie and Michelle. All right, thank you. Anybody online, Peter?
She was also the co-founder of the Financial Times Moral Money, a twice-weekly newsletter that tracks environmental, social, and governance issues in business and finance. Her latest book, Anthrovision, is a new way to see life in business, was featured on Fareed Zakaria GPS on CNN. So next week, come and learn about the financial trends internationally in business at Oakland Rotary.
Okay, at this point, would Christine and Michelle go to the back of the ballroom so that Rotarian can greet you as they leave? And I wanted to thank everybody who participated in today's meeting. Also want to remind everybody, next week, September 1st, is a Zoom-only meeting. Do not come to the ballroom. You'll be here by your lonesome self. This meeting is adjourned.